Today in NBA 2K25, I made every decade into a team. First team we have is the 2020s, pretty much just current day team. Luka, Jokic, Giannis, Shea, Tatum, Embiid, AD, Braun, Curry, KD, Ant, Booker, Brunson, Mitchell, and Brown. The 2010s. By the way, I used a website that had the All Decades team for the 2Ks. I did make a change or two, and I also added the 2020s and the 1950s to make it 8 teams in total. And I don't think it'll be. I think in total it'll be an 8-team playoff, so every team would make the playoffs then, which is where it'll really get interesting. 2010s, I got Kobe, Braun, Curry, Wade, KD, Paul, Giannis, Kawhi, Harden, Westbrook, Rose, Anthony, AD, Kyrie, and Dwight Howard. 2000s. The LeBron and Kobe duo again. But also Tim Duncan, Shaquille O'Neal, Kevin Garnett, Dirk Nowitzki, Dwayne Wade, Allen Iverson, Vince Carter, Steve Nash, Jason Kidd. This team isn't the best shooting ever, besides, I guess, Tracy McGrady, Dirk Nowitzki. Okay, I guess, never mind, this is a good shooting team. Just don't let Shaq shoot it. Tracy McGrady, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen's down here, Yao Ming. This is my pick to win here. This 2000s team. Doesn't mean the other ones aren't stacked, though. 1990s, Michael Jordan, Hakeem, Stockton, Pippen, Karl Malone, David Robinson, Ewing, Gary Payton, Penny Hardaway, Mourning, Clyde the Glide, Shaq, Dennis Rodman, Sean Kemp, and Grant Hill. I don't know why he's on the team in an 86 overall, but apparently the 90s sucked, I guess. I don't know. Nope. Not what I meant to do. 1980s, Magic Johnson. This team is 499s. Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, and Hakeem Olajuwon. Not to mention Moses Malone, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with their matching glasses, Kevin McHale, Isaiah Thomas, James Worthy with his matching glasses. Is the goggles maybe? I don't know. Dominique Wilkins, George Gervin, Julius Erving, Sidney Moncrief, Alex English, and Adrian Dantley. 1970s. Kareem, Walt Frazier, Dr. J, John Havlicek, Bill Walton, Rick Barry, Dave Cowens, Bob McAdoo, Pistol Pete Maravich, Elvin Hayes, JoJo White, Nate Archibald, Artis Gilmore, Bob Lanier, Dave Bing. The 1960s. Brought back Bill Russell for this team. Felt right. This is probably the second weakest team, I would say, besides the 50s. Because I could only get 9 players for the 50s. Bill Russell, Jerry West, Oscar Robertson, Elgin Baylor, Bob Cousy, Jerry Lucas, Bob Pettit, Dolph Schayes, Wes Unseld, Willis Reed, Richie Guerin, Nate Thurmond, Wilt Chamberlain, who's only a 91 as of the 1960s, which is honestly kind of strange. Wayne Embry, Gail Goodrich. And now the 1950s, you'll notice there's a few 40 overalls because I couldn't completely fill the roster. But they have enough to play for sure. Bill Russell's on this team also, along with Bob Cousy, Elgin Baylor, Bob Pettit, Dolph Schayes, George Mikan, Richie Guerin, Paul Horizon, and Cliff Hagan. I did see originally they had George Mikan on the 60s team, but I looked it up and he never played in the 60s, so I just put him on the 50s team. And then the rest of the league is just, I have a few teams, just like generic logos, who are teams of 40 overalls, because you need at least 12 teams. So now I'll take a look at what the conferences look like. It's only a 5-game season, so I think it's 4 teams out of each conference will make it. So it'll probably be the 2-0 overall teams that don't make it. So, the East is the 2020s, 2010s, 2000s, and 1990s. That is a tough conference. The West is the 80s, 70s, 60s, and 50s. And then 2 zeros. So, let's get to the playoffs and see where each team is in the... I guess it would technically be 18 playoffs, but 4 teams per conference. LeBron wins MVP for the 2010s. Reed Shepherd gets Rookie of the Year with 3 points and 1 assist for one of the 0 overall teams. Luka gets Sixth Man for the 2020s. Scottie Pippen wins Defensive Player of the Year for the 90s. Peyton Watson gets Most Improved for one of the 0 overall teams with a whopping 3.2 points per game. Pete Maravich wins Clutch Player of the Year for... He's on the 70s, I believe. Yeah, I think that's the 70s. Might be the 60s. Doc Rivers gets Coach of the Year. I didn't change the coaches. I just left them as they were. So, why is this here? The season's over. Who cares? So here we go. We got the 8-team playoff. And we'll see how each team did. They all got 2 free wins against the 0 overall teams. So each team is going to have at least 2 wins. The 2000s and 2010s led the East at 4-1. 1990s and 2020s went 3-2. In the Western Conference, the 1970s and 60s went 4-1. What happened to the 80s? Them along with the 50s went 3-2, interestingly. And then you'll see 1-0 overall team got a game in each conference. Because there's 1-0 overall game in each conference. These there being 2-0 overall teams per conference. So, once again, here's our playoff bracket. We'll look at what we got here. We have the 1970s taking on the 1980s. This is the... My brain doesn't work. Grizzlies, Hawks is 60s, 50s. And then in the East, we have 2000s versus 2020s. And 2010s versus 1990s. So we'll see how round 1 goes. I'm not gonna go through the entire series. I just am curious. We will jump into a game. We will watch a game live if we get to a game 7. And there go the 2020s. They get swept by the 2000s. 2020s did not last very long. However, it's in the newest decade here. We got 2 more teams eliminated. We got the 1980s being defeated. And we have... Sorry, my brother's sneezing like a maniac. And the 2010s were also eliminated. We do have a nice series here between the 50s and 60s, ironically. Probably the 2 worst teams. This one's going to Game 7. Just a reminder, 60s are... Yeah, I'm not okay. 50s are the Hawks, 60s are the Grizzlies. I kind of just picked random teams, I gotta be honest. We will jump in to watch this one if it gets close. And it looks like it is. We're gonna simulate a little bit more. Let's jump in and watch this one. Big Game 7. Okay, so here we go. 50s and 60s battling it out in Game 7. Bob Cousy behind the line, pass inside, Pettit, good on the layup. 1-point game. A little over a minute to go. Cousy's got the ball for the other team now. This is definitely something. I did not expect the 1950s to even make it to a Game 7 with the 60s. Not that the 60s are that much better, but the 60s just have more depth. Pettit, good. 3-point game. 50s are in some trouble with less than a minute left. Cousy taking up the floor. Pass. Pettit. Pettit shoots. No good. The other Pettit gets the rebound. That's Richie Guerin going with it. Bob Cousy, top of the key. Less than 40 seconds remaining. Cousy's trying to waste time inside to Pettit. Will he shoot? It's blocked by George Mikan. One of the leaders of the 1950s. Cousy. Trying to get away from, I believe, is himself. That's on him right now. Less than 20 seconds left. 3-point game. They need a 3 here. Pettit fades. Good. 1-point game, but they just gave the ball up. Down 1 with 15 seconds left, and they could have shot a 3. Now, I know the 1950s don't have the best 3-point shooters, by any means. As a matter of fact, I don't think the 3-point line was a thing then. But still, like, you probably should have shot it there. They're gonna foul. And it looks like this one probably over for the 1950s. It looks like the 60s will advance to the conference finals. Jerry West misses the second free throw. Oh no. What are the 60s doing? This could go to overtime. Elgin Baylor's got it on the outside. Time running out. Three-pointer. Good. They take the lead with 1.3 to go. That should be it. The 1950s pulled it off. I didn't expect them to even have a chance in the first round. And yet here we are. The big three-pointer by Richie Guerin. I don't even really know much of who that is. I've heard of him before, but I don't know much about him. He sinks the corner three. Now the full court shot. Will it go? No. The 1950s pull the upset and advance to the conference finals. What an upset. Pettit with a very efficient 23 points in 19 minutes for the 1950s. It just wasn't enough for the 60s to advance. This team had Jerry West, Oscar Robertson, Elgin Baylor. Like, they have so much depth on this team. They just can't beat the 50s squad. 14 assists from Bob Cousy. My gosh. That man doesn't shoot, he just passes. That's all he can do. We're now on to the conference finals. The remaining teams we have, it's going to be the 1950s versus the 1970s. And the 2000s versus the 1990s. No 2010 or 2020 remaining. We'll watch how these game ones go. Looks like we might be on a sweep here. And yes, 1990s are swept by the 2000s. And this might be the end. It looks like the 50s might have a chance to make the finals. And they're going to do so. Led by Bob Cousy. We got a Bob Cousy, Kevin Garnett finals. 1950s versus 2000s. 2000s, Allen Iverson, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Kevin Garnett, Shaquille O'Neal. I don't think the 50s can stop that. They have Bob Cousy, Richie Guerin, Elgin Baylor, Dolph Schayes, and Bill Russell. Game 1, we'll watch these all in Simcast to see how they go. 50s could have an ultimate insanity run. Looks like it's not going to happen. They're getting mauled by the 2000s. 125 to 94. Kobe drops 24. LeBron with 22. LeBron and AI combined for 22 assists. Not to mention 9 from Dwayne Wade. 9 points, 9 assists. 1950s. Yeah, they just can't get it. Cousy with 6, 8, and 12 in 38 minutes. Game 2. 50s coming out to an early lead here. 2000s might be struggling. And the 50s win it in Game 2, 116 to 109. Tim Duncan had 25 points in 26 minutes, but it wasn't enough to stop the 1950s Linsanity. This is the last team I thought was going to have a chance in this. Like, nobody from the 1950s can guard, like, pretty much anybody in the 2000s, besides, like, Bill Russell could probably guard a lot of them. We're going into overtime, and the 2000s will take it. 2-1 series. Here we go in Game 4. Looks like the 50s are going to make a runaway with it. And they do, 114 to 92. So Elgin Baylor had a huge game in the top left, it looked like. Nope, only 17 points. 25 from Tim Duncan, though. Shaq with 10 rebounds on only 8 points. There's his shooting ability. It's 2-2. Good series so far. 2000s have the lead. 50s take it back. What are we going to see here? And the 50s win it. They take a 3-2 lead over the 2000s. No way. The 1950s win the championship. 2000s are fighting back, but do they have enough of a chance? We'll watch here on fast speed. We're gonna hop in with 1:35 left. The 50s are up 1. If they win this game, they are champions. Which is insane. I did not think this team would make it this far. But yet, here we are. Russell inbounds it to Kuzi. 1.5 left on the clock. They're up by 1. Pass inside to Pettit. I thought Pettit was like 6'6" for some reason. Mikan cannot shoot threes. Gonna give it to Russell. They really have a bunch of big guys on the court, it feels like. Pettit for 3! No! Rebound by Allen Iverson. He's grabbing rebounds? What are you doing? Kobe layup. No good! Kobe misses the layup. Bob Cousy for 3. Good! 4-point lead for the 50s. A minute to go. Allen Iverson bringing it up. Iverson. So he's trying to back into him. Pump fakes twice. Nowitzki. Good on the layup. 98-96 with 50.3 to go. Cousy's got it. Bob Cousy been dangerous so far, but a little bit inconsistent as well. Pettit shoots the fade. Good! 4-point game again for the 50s with 40 seconds to go. Allen Iverson bringing it up now for the 2000s. This would be an all-time upset. Dwayne Wade shoots the layup. No good. Rebound by Mikan. D. Wade's gonna foul. Are they in the bonus? Yes, they are. Cousy, shot 1 is good. That might have sealed it. 5-point game now. They got... Who is that? Is that Grant? No, that's not Grant Hill. He misses the second one. Shaq gets the rebound. Allen Iverson with it. Down by 5. They're going to need a 3 here. KG's on the court. Iverson kicks it out. 3-pointer is good. Vince Carter. 2-point game. They still have a chance to force Game 7. They're going to foul Richie Guerin of the 1950s. Guerin to the line for 2. Shot 1 is good. 3-point game now. Ball game. 4-point game with 12.1 to go. Not only that, but the 2000s are out of timeouts. I don't think they can make it past the 1950 squad. 12.1 to go. Down by 4. Shaq with the ball. Inbounds. Vince Carter shoots the layup. He's fouled by Elgin Baylor. His 4th foul of the game. But the layup misses. So he only gets 2 shots here. Carter. Good. Now in range of the 3-point game. Shot 2 is good. 2-point game with 9.5 to go. Russell inbounds to Guerin. He's fouled by Kobe. That's his 5th foul. He's in foul trouble. Foul outs are on, so that could be bad for them. Guerin. Good. If he makes this, it's officially game. It's over. 4-point lead. Iverson bringing it up. They need a 4-point play here, which isn't impossible, but it's unlikely. 1 second to go. Shot is off. And the 1950s win the championship. Somehow. Some way. Shaq is getting kicked in the head by people. Shaq, you can't let that happen, man. So the 1950s complete the run of the decade. Pun intended. Shaq is... There's no reason the 2000s should have lost to the 1950s. There's a man's neck. What is this camera angle? Well, there it is. The 1950s have won the simulation. Every team had 15 players. They had 9. Along with a bunch of 40 overalls. George Mikan still got his glasses on. There's Bill Russell with it. The 1950s. Never would have expected it. Win the championship. In Game 6. It didn't even go to 7. It went to 6. What a game. Cousy, 24 points and 11 assists. Not to mention 6 rebounds. Shaq had 22 points in 26 minutes. but it's just not enough. 1950s are your champions. Bob Cousy wins MVP.